Sad news. Bing Crosby died today while playing golf near Madrid, Spain. He was 73. He collapsed on the course, was rushed to the hospital, but was pronounced dead on arrival. Crosby almost died last year when he fell off a stage while taping a television program. He recovered and said his only problem was that he might not be able to play golf anymore. Bing Crosby leaves behind his widow, Catherine, 7 children, and 12 grandchildren.
Bing Crosby was a giant in 20th century entertainment, celebrated for his smooth, velvety voice, magnetic charisma, and lasting legacy in music and film. Crosby's career spanned decades, rising to fame during Hollywood's golden age, shaping the fabric of popular culture and the entertainment industry. His distinctive baritone voice catapulted him to become one of the best-selling recording artists of all time, with timeless hits like White Christmas and Swinging on a Star earning him iconic status. On the silver screen, Crosby's charm and talent shone brightly in beloved classics such as Going My Way and The Bells of St. Mary's roles that showcased his effortless versatility as both an actor and singer. Yet, behind the bright lights and accolades, Crosby's life painted a far darker picture. While he appeared to live the American dream, his private world was rife with turmoil, especially in his strained relationships with his children from his first marriage to Dixie Lee. After Crosby died in 1907, the facade of the perfect family was shattered when his son Gary exposed unsettling truths about the legendary star. This revelation forever altered how the world saw the man behind the music. Do you know why Bing Crosby's name counted in the most evil actors of Hollywood's golden age? If not, then join us in this video as we unveil the darker secrets of Bing Crosby's life. Make sure to watch till the end. Bing Crosby, born Harry Lillis Crosby Jr., wasn't always the smooth crooner we remember. His nickname Bing came not from a playful cops and robbers game, as he liked to claim, but from a neighbor teasingly calling him Bingo from Bingville, inspired by a local newspaper. Even as a child, Crosby's life hinted at the drama that would follow. At just 6, he discovered a photograph that sparked his love for music, ultimately leading him to abandon law school for the uncertain world of showbiz. By the mid-1920s, he found early success with the Rhythm Boys, his jazz styling so unique they inspired imitators like Dean Martin. But Crosby's rise to fame wasn't without challenges. A bout of laryngitis in the 1930s strained his voice, and when doctors discovered a vocal cord node, they urged him to rest. Crosby ignored them, pushing his voice to the brink while indulging his love for alcohol, which worsened his condition. By the mid-1930s, his high notes were gone, forcing him to pivot to slower ballads. Surprisingly, this shift made him a legend. His new style resonated deeply, earning him the title Voice of the Nation. Yet behind the fame lay a story of resilience, reinvention, and the price of chasing stardom. In 1930, Bing Crosby married actress Dixie Lee, but their romance hit a rocky start. Just 6 months later, Dixie filed for divorce, claiming they couldn't be happy together. However, she quickly regretted her decision and reconciled with Bing after confiding in a friend who helped bring them back together. Dixie gave up her film career to focus on their family, but while Bing thrived in his work, she struggled with loneliness. Turning to alcohol for comfort, her addiction spiraled, leaving a lasting impact on their 4 sons, Gary, Philip, Dennis, and Lindsay, who witnessed her struggles firsthand. Daughter Mary later described how Dixie's drinking left emotional scars, with memories of her passing out in front of the children. In 1943, another tragedy struck when a fire destroyed their family home in Toluca Lake, sparked by a short circuit while dismantling their Christmas tree. The blaze claimed cherished possessions, including Bing's trophies and musical recordings, leaving the family devastated. Though Bing and Dixie shared moments of love, their life together was marked by pain, addiction, and heartbreaking loss, proving that even the brightest stars face deep struggles. Bing Crosby's career was nothing short of legendary, leaving behind a remarkable legacy of over 1,200 songs. Yet despite his musical achievements, one song overshadowed them all: White Christmas. For decades, it held the title of the best-selling single of all time, immortalized in the Guinness Book of World Records. However, some argue that this iconic tune did as much harm as good to Crosby's legacy. Record producer Ken Barnes explained the conundrum. History remembers Crosby not as a trailblazer, but as the perennial voice of Christmas. the singer who reappears every year to croon White Christmas. But Crosby himself saw things differently. When Barbara Walters asked him in a 1977 interview if he ever grew tired of his most famous hit, his response was both candid and heartwarming. "No, I could never be sick of it. I just fear that people might be." Behind the festive cheer he brought to millions, Crosby's personal life was far less harmonious. While he exuded charm on stage, he struggled as a father. His relentless work schedule, filming up to 4 movies a year, meant he was often absent from his 4 sons' lives. He sent them to boarding schools, but his intentions were rooted in fear. Crosby dreaded the idea of his sons becoming entitled Hollywood kids, a lifestyle he loathed. Yet his overbearing concerns created a rift, leaving his children feeling more abandoned than protected. Crosby's family struggles extended to his marriage with Dixie Lee, which was fraught with difficulties. Though he sometimes considered divorce, he chose to remain loyal to her. This loyalty, however, could not shield him from heartbreak. In January 1945, Dixie collapsed from what was initially described as a respiratory infection. But whispers in the press suggested a darker truth: an accidental overdose of sleeping pills. Dixie's health continued to decline, shadowed by years of loneliness, depression, and heavy drinking. At just 40, she received a devastating diagnosis: ovarian cancer. Tragically, her doctors chose to keep the terminal prognosis from her, hoping to spare her additional anguish. Crosby went along with the charade, even flying to Paris for a film project to maintain normalcy. It was a choice he would come to regret deeply. When Dixie passed away, Crosby wasn't there to hold her hand in her final moments. Her death at such a young age left the family shattered. At the funeral, grief enveloped Crosby, and the chaotic scene added to the heartbreak. Photographers swarmed the solemn event, turning it into what his son Gary described as a circus. The loss of Dixie pushed Crosby into a shell. He refused to speak publicly about his pain, burying his emotions beneath a stoic facade. Behind the scenes, the man who brought joy to millions carried a heavy burden of sorrow, a reminder that even the brightest stars often battle the darkest shadows. In the late 1940s, while Dixie Lee spiraled into alcoholism, Bing Crosby found solace elsewhere, notably in the arms of actress Joan Caulfield. This affair remained secret for years, only coming to light after Crosby's death. Patricia Neal, who herself had been a mistress, revealed the affair in her autobiography, As I Am. Neal described how Caulfield, infatuated with the famous singer, confided her desire to marry Crosby. Neal, reflecting on her own experience, said, "We were in the same boat in more ways than one." But the gossip didn't stop there. 2 sisters, Violet and Mary Barca, became amateur detectives, trailing Crosby's every move. They meticulously recorded their observations, uncovering the truth about Crosby's secret meetings with Caulfield. Even Crosby's sister, Betty, confirmed the affair, adding to the scandal. Despite his deep affection for Caulfield, Crosby struggled with his Catholic values, torn between his love for her and his duty to his wife Dixie. Though he considered leaving her, Crosby stayed by her side, even as her personal struggles weighed heavily on their marriage. After her death, Crosby embraced his newfound bachelor status, dating famous women like Pat Sheehan, Grace Kelly, and Inger Stevens. But it was actress Katharine Grant who eventually won his heart. This second marriage, however, did not come without its complications. Crosby's new family came with its own set of challenges. He welcomed 3 more children, but his first batch of kids felt neglected. Nathaniel Crosby's son remarked that his father seemed clueless about raising kids. "I believe he had more time to spend with us," he reflected. This created a stark contrast between Crosby's 2 families, with his relationship with his first children often strained. As Crosby aged, the world around him changed. The rise of new stars like Elvis Presley and the Beatles overshadowed his once dominant presence. Yet, in 1977, the music industry honored him with a special celebration for his 50 years in show business. But what should have been a joyful occasion nearly turned tragic. At the end of his televised performance, Crosby fell off the stage, suffering a serious injury. Though he managed to grab onto a piece of scenery on his way down, the fall ruptured a disc, leaving him unable to walk. His daughter, Mary Crosby, would later comment, "It should have killed him, but it didn't." Sadly, that close call was a sign of things to come. Crosby's death came suddenly, catching everyone by surprise. The end of his life, like so much of it, was marked by both triumph and tragedy. On October 13th, 1907, Bing Crosby embarked on a journey to Spain, hoping to relax with some golf and hunting. The following morning, while in high spirits on the golf course, he reached the ninth hole when a group of construction workers recognized him. They asked him to sing, and Crosby, ever the performer, gladly obliged, serenading them with strangers in the night. Unbeknownst to him, this would be his last performance. After winning his final round of golf, Crosby walked back to the clubhouse, turning to his friends with a smile, saying, "That was a great game of golf, fellas. Let's go have a Coca-Cola." These were his last words. Just a mere 20 yards from the clubhouse, Crosby collapsed from a massive heart attack and never regained consciousness. At 74, the beloved star's life ended in an instant, but his story didn't end there. In the years following his death, Crosby's image would be shattered. To the public, Crosby had always been the picture of wholesome, all-American charm, but in 1983, his son, Gary Crosby, published a bombshell memoir, Going My Own Way, that redefined the narrative. Gary accused his father of abusing him and his siblings, both emotionally and physically, revealing the darker side of Crosby's fatherhood. In one of the most shocking passages, Gary described how Crosby would criticize his weight and use a metal-studded belt to punish him after weigh-ins. Gary's revelations didn't stop there. His brother Lindsay sided with him, confirming the brutal accounts. This was especially unexpected, as Lindsay had long been considered Crosby's favorite child. But beneath the public image of the favored son was a man struggling with alcoholism and depression. Crosby had even considered admitting Lindsay to a psychiatric ward, but his son's downward spiral continued. Tragically, after Crosby's death, Lindsay found himself destitute when the family inheritance vanished. In his despair, he took his own life in December of 1989. The heartbreak didn't end with Lindsay. Dennis, another of Crosby's sons, also succumbed to the family's tragic fate. At 56, Dennis ended his life, his brother recalling how their mother's death had dimmed his spirit. He said Dennis had been trying to reunite with her ever since. The Crosby family drama deepened when Philip, another of Crosby's sons, vehemently rejected Gary's accusations. He believed his brother was only motivated by fame and money, and he lashed out at Gary, calling him a liar, talentless, and greedy. Philip's anger toward Gary ran so deep that he vowed, "To my dying day, I'll hate Gary for dragging Dad's name through the mud." Yet not all of Crosby's children followed the same tragic path. From his second marriage, his son, who starred in the original Friday the 13th, eventually found success as an investment banker. His daughter Mary became a familiar face on the hit show Dallas, and his son Nathaniel chose to follow in his father's footsteps in a more uplifting way. He became an accomplished golfer, even winning the U.S. Amateur Championship in 1981. In the end, Crosby's legacy was far more complex than anyone could have imagined, filled with both talent and turmoil, love and loss, triumph and tragedy. After the death of his wife, Bing Crosby's personal life took a shocking twist. He briefly dated and even proposed to a model named Pat Sheen. While this may not seem scandalous at first, the story quickly grew more complicated. In 1958, Sheen went on to marry Bing's son, Dennis Crosby. Yes, she first dated the father, then married the son. But their marriage was anything but a fairy tale. Shortly after their wedding, Dennis found himself embroiled in a paternity lawsuit filed by a woman named Marilyn Miller Scott, who claimed Dennis was the father of her daughter. Dennis Crosby lost the case, and the drama that followed was nothing short of embarrassing for both him and his famous father, Bing. Tensions between the Crosbys and Scott only seemed to grow, and in an unfortunate turn of events, Bing Crosby allegedly never met the granddaughter at the center of the paternity scandal. This chapter in the Crosby family's history ended in disappointment and scandal, leaving a lasting stain on their legacy. If this story intrigued you, don't forget to leave a like.